Hello, everyone, and welcome to Relic Law's Interview with an Expert series. I'm William Orlowitz, Principal Attorney at Relic Law. Today, we have the pleasure of speaking with Brandon Berry, CEO of Block Harbor Cybersecurity, who will be taking our questions on assessing and securing cyber-physical systems. So let's jump right in, Brandon. Can you first give us a little bit of background on what you and Block Harbor do?
Sure. So for the past 6 years, Block Harbor was founded back in 2014. We have been focusing on services for securing cyber physical systems. Predominantly, a lot of our work has been in automotive security, so ensuring that future vehicles that will be highly connected, highly automated, are designed and engineered in a secure way. So the types of things that we're doing day to day are really implementing core managed security services traditionally found in areas like IT security, but to a higher standard where you have life at risk in a cyber physical system.
Excellent. And I think that's really an important area that a lot of people are interested in. So let's move on to our first question. So really, what is cyber physical security and how is it unique from traditional information security?
Sure. So information security really, I mean, what you're saying there is that you're securing information or data. And that's been around really since the inception of the internet, and where you have bad actors trying to access repositories of data. When you're thinking about securing data, your core asset that you're trying to secure is just that, it's the data. So you're setting up defenses in layer to ensure that bad actors cannot access that data. When you compare that, so information security, which is a well-done and well-practiced area, to cyber physical security, on the other hand, cyber physical security is a system that's connected, usually to the internet, where there's human safety involved as well. So, yeah, I guess, Will, I would sum it up as that. It's a internet system where there is safety involved.
Right, and I think that's an important distinction that allows people to kind of conceptualize the risk associated with cyber physical different than maybe the more traditional information security risks that they're used to thinking about. So that kind of takes us to our next question, which what cyber physical systems really require robust security?
Yeah, so we can run through a few examples here. One, everyone's familiar with hospitals, healthcare. When you go into a hospital and you're requiring service, especially emergency service, those hospitals are becoming increasingly connected, where you have maybe tools that are there to benefit patients, but they may have, they may connect up to some web servers that allow those tools to perform better. And so that is happening in hospitals across the country. But the question is, well, what if you start denying access to the tool? What if an attacker is able to hold those tools for ransom when patients are there at the hospital in need of those tools? Another example of a cyber physical system, kind of just as I mentioned, cars, which is our predominant focus at Block Harbor, where cars are going to be really connected. They're going to be talking to one another. They're going to be talking to their related infrastructure to get the latest information on, say, traffic. But what happens if those highly connected vehicle systems start to be manipulated, or maybe your car no longer knows where to go, and so an attacker is able to direct your car off the road? So those are two examples. Certainly there are plenty like this. I guess just to dive in a couple more, you could think of satellites in some capacities as a cyber physical system where you may require satellite access or a satellite connection in order to have internet access because you're in a remote area. If your system is relying on that satellite access, and that at the other end of that system is some form of safety, then that's a cyber physical system. So really, Will, it's any of these situations where these technologies that we built over the past few decades, predominantly internet systems, are starting to move into our physical world.
Yeah, and I see that being a sort of a unique area where you're less, focused specifically on, securing the sort of the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of data, and are really looking at this as a safety issue with respect to that connected device. So I think it definitely warrants its own sort of expertise in evaluating those particular risks, and then in the solutions that go into mitigating those risks. So for question 3, I mean, how do you assess the risks to cyber physical systems?
Yeah, well, and I love this question because, I mean, so often we hear the word cybersecurity and you have solution providers, but the first step in implementing any form of cybersecurity is always a risk assessment. And so I'm glad we're talking about that early on here. So when you compare assessing risk in a traditional IT security system to a cyber physical system, it's not so different, actually. It's the same techniques and procedures that are used. So as an example, when you're performing a risk assessment in IT security, your first question is, what are your assets? In other words, what do you care about? What do you have to protect in the first place? Usually the answer to that question is, I care about data stored here, or I care about my user experience that exists here in IT security. So for a cyber physical system, your risk is simply equated a little bit different because your assets that you're choosing are different. So instead of saying my asset is data, you are saying my asset is human safety. And then you're trying to find the risks to human safety.
Yeah, and I think that, in all engagements, with our clients, we always advise that the first thing that they need to do is really understand the assets that they have and that they want to protect and that they need to protect, and the reasons why they need to protect those things. And without that sort of fundamental understanding, it's difficult to really make, good recommendations for them. And so I think that's, beginning with an assessment is pretty important.
Exactly. And then the logical next steps to implement cybersecurity are specific strategies to mitigate those risks. That's often lost in the equation here. And so more with cyber physical systems, it's more important than ever to ensure that you have this clear process from risk assessment to mitigations to implementation of those mitigation strategies.
Absolutely. So in looking at risks, what risks are the organizations that you're working with most concerned about?
Well, there's a few ways to look at that. Just to jump back to cars a little bit. I mean, when you're thinking about what risks an automaker who produces cars are looking at, certainly passenger safety is a part of that equation, because at some point, kind of just like functional safety, your car has seatbelts, it has airbags. Those functional safety implementations were implemented because automakers came together and said they need to keep passengers safe. And then the government came around and said, well, we're going to regulate this. We're going to ensure that the cars you produce are meeting a certain quality standard to keep passengers safe. So automakers in this case are certainly thinking about keeping passengers safe, but they're also keeping an eye out on that future regulation that has yet to come down the pipeline, but that will basically ask the same question. Are you producing cars that are safe for passengers to get into? Same thing in my previous example as well, hospitals. Is any device that's being added to a hospital's network, is it being added in a way that's safe for patients? So I would say that human safety is a big component of the equation that organizations are thinking about. Other areas, I mean, really there's a number of things here. So brand damage is really, really important, something that cyber physical systems, more than traditional IT systems, need to be concerned about. So when you think to other breaches in this industry, like the Equifax hack, where consumers' credit history was breached. I mean, there was obviously a huge loss of trust. There was a huge amount of brand damage done. But at the end of the day, it's still just data, and Equifax is still in business. They suffered large brand damage. In the case of cyber physical system owners, they're looking at those cases where information security was compromised, and they're saying, well, more than likely, our brand would suffer a lot more. In fact, it is likely the situation that the first autonomous car that is crashed because of a cybersecurity incident, well, you know, I mean, it's actually a giant unknown. Will passengers ever get into a car made by that manufacturer again? Will that company stay in business? So brand damage is another really important part of that equation. So I've had safety, brand damage, and regulation. Those are three of the components that people are thinking about in our day-to-day interactions at Block Harbor, for sure.
Yeah, and I can think that the gravity of those risks, you know, as you sort of alluded to, compared to your traditional information security risks, are a lot heavier, right? And so you're dealing with potential risks to human life, and those organizations, I can understand why this specific topic is on their radar, and it has to be top of mind, especially given the threat landscape and the various bad actors that are out to attack these types of systems for whatever reason. It could be, you know, financial gain, or it could be some other motivation. But and I would add to your list also legal, where, you know, we counsel clients on their legal exposure that results from these types of incidents, and what that can look like. And when you couple that together with obviously the harm that's come to someone on top of the brand damage, the risk of regulatory issues, as well as their exposure to legal liability, I think it becomes something very serious that merits attention. So in thinking about that, what can Block Harbor do to help companies and different organizations mitigate those cyber physical risks?
Yeah, so I always describe Block Harbor as the boots on the ground. In so much of cybersecurity, the conversation today, because it is a matured security when we're talking about information security. Securing data is relatively straightforward, and it makes sense to start applying technologies like artificial intelligence and machine learning to the tool set that you're using to secure information. With cyber physical security, I mean, Block Harbor was really founded on first things first. We need humans in the loop. We need the boots on the ground that are actually performing the risk assessments. We're actually performing the penetration tests. We're actually staffing security operations center, because we're not at a point where AI and machine learning can come in and create tools that secure to the standard that a cyber physical system demands. So predominantly, Will, I would say that we're boots on the ground. We came up with services that make sense while everybody's still trying to figure out what services are necessary for cyber physical security. We're performing some kind of consulting where our services don't fit well, or where customers are asking for help with basically, because cyber physical security is such an undefined space, it's inevitable that we have to be the kind of go-to resources and experts to help our customers with whatever their problem is. And then largely, Will, what we're doing a lot of is creating that tooling. We're using software to help us. We're building tools as we go to ensure that our customers have solutions that are efficient and beneficial, not just in the short term, not just in securing a vehicle in the case of automotive, but securing all their vehicles. How do they implement this organization-wide? So yeah, I guess I would say it's really what we're tackling is the people and the tools.
Yeah. So I guess, is it fair to say that, your approach to this involves some degree of human intelligence coupled with, software and automation to sort of, as a tactical measure, address this in a sort of holistic way?
Yeah, I would say that. And, I keep referencing the automotive industry just because we do so much work there. And what I haven't mentioned is the reason we do so much work in automotive is because as one of the cyber physical systems that's pioneering and answering these questions around cyber physical security, the reason that automotive is at that forefront is because they have suffered not an attack from, say, an organization, a terrorist organization at a large scale, but researchers showcase how you can abuse these cyber physical systems to potentially hurt a passenger. So, yeah, so in the case of automotive, what we're doing is figuring out, the people are so important. You cannot come in with a tool where AI has been used to secure information security to replace a human. Instead, you need to create the tools where the human's still there to make decisions and really to guide cyber physical security as we're still figuring it out. There is so much maturing to be done in this space, so much definition that has yet to be defined. So yeah, Will, we're really focused on the human input because, these systems, they need critical analysis. If you don't have someone sitting down and thinking of every possible way that an attacker may want to impact safety, then you're going to miss a lot. So yeah, that's our core focus, Will.
No, that makes sense. And I know Black Harbor won a vehicle hackathon not too long ago. So I'm sure you guys are keenly aware of all the sort of vulnerabilities that a modern vehicle actually has. But let's move on to question 6. So I really wanted to get your take on, what you think is on the horizon in the cyber physical space. Where do you see this particular, subspecialty within cybersecurity headed?
Yeah, so I think, and I've alluded to this as I've answered these questions, but I think that the key thing here is definition. So industries need to come together, stakeholders in industry need to come together, government, academia, and industry themselves need to agree upon what are the necessary processes and techniques needed to secure a cyber physical system. We've watched this unfold in automotive, and I cannot say enough how important that has been. Taking away things. with a cyber physical system, you need to take away the competitive advantage of security. It's not a competitive advantage for one company who's implementing a cyber physical system to be more secure than another company, because at the end of the day, it's human safety. It's not business, it's human safety. So I think the first thing on the horizon is definition, agreement upon language that we're using, and figuring out how traditional IT security fits with cyber physical security, because you can't really untie those things. I am here stating that all you're doing is saying that the asset that you're protecting is more important. That's true, and so you need better defenses, but there's not a clear definition or line really between information security and cyber physical security. Data security doesn't go away. That will always be there. Privacy is only becoming more important. So what we need to figure out is how, instead of just implementing, having a whole separate set of processes for cyber physical security, how do you intertwine those with existing information security programs that may exist at organizations?
Yeah, and I think that
beyond that, Will, I think that regulation is what comes next. And then I think even beyond that is when tools and AI and machine learning, that's when those tools can be applied. But really, once we agree upon definition, regulation comes down the line to ensure that you're meeting the standards you set for yourself, and then there suddenly becomes a lot more space for implementing tools and automation and so on.
Yeah, and I was just going to say that I think, you know, regulatory clarity and standardization is probably needed. And I think that having that would probably help foster sort of a more open sourced approach to this problem, you know, where companies can really sort of democratize, not necessarily their proprietary technologies, but at least the basis for which they're approaching, you know, how to solve the problem. And, you know, I think, as you've alluded to too, I think that this is an area where you definitely need, you know, multidisciplinary cross-functional teams, each approaching the issue from their own perspective and collaborating in a way that addresses it across the board and end to end, not just sort of on an ad hoc basis. And I think that, you know, that will ultimately bear out to be the most effective way of reducing the totality of the risk to everyone in general. And so I really appreciate your perspective on that.
Yeah, Will. Just trying to think if I have anything to add. I think you summed it up well there, Will.
Yeah, excellent. And we definitely thank you for your time today, Brandon. And for all of those who have joined us, you know, you can definitely learn more about Relic Law's multidisciplinary cybersecurity and data privacy practice at our website, which is reliclawpllc.com. And for Brandon at Block Harbor, you can find them at blockharbor.io. Again, thanks very much. See you next time.